Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Hello, how are you doing? It is great to be back in Colorado and at 5,000 feet elevation. Why? No humidity. It is hot this summer. We were down in Florida, as you know. We went up to Pennsylvania and then came back across to Colorado. And now I remember why I live in Colorado at 5,000 feet elevation. And that is, you do not feel the heat. You do not have the humidity like you have in the South or on the East Coast. I have a quick question for you. Do you have regrets? Do you have any regrets? I'm sure you do. There are things that you've done in the past that you wish you hadn't done. Things you wish you could have done or you should have done. We all have them. Now, this is today's topic, but specifically about innovation. Innovation regrets. Innovation regrets. Things that you've learned, things that you wish you would have done, could have done, should have done, wish you had done, whatever. That's what we're going to talk about in today's show. Now, before we jump in, I have a few favors to ask. One is to like today's show so your friends and coworkers and your network sees that you're listening to the show. Would love and appreciate that. The other is follow us on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. If you want to follow on LinkedIn, just go ahead and give me a connection request, or you can just do a straight follow. But if you want to get connected, just let me know that you are a listener of the show. When you send the request, tell me that you are a listener of the show, and I will accept the connection request. Otherwise, I tend to reject them because I literally get 100, 125 a week. So let me know you're a listener, and I will accept it. And again, share it. Share it on your social media. Share on today's link for today's show. Would greatly appreciate it. So let's go ahead and let's jump into today's episode on innovation regrets. Regret can be one of those emotions that can derail your future. We will constantly rehash things that have happened in the past. And we're not always asking ourselves, what if I'd done something different? If only I had done something different. Or why didn't I do that? Or why didn't I make that decision at that critical point? And then the worst of them all is, I just wish I had done something, done X, done this thing, rather than not do it. And look, we all have regrets. When it comes to innovation, missed opportunities can lead to dwelling upon regrets. Innovation and being in the innovation game, being an innovator as you are, you will deal and are dealing with regrets even today. Those regrets can be anything from you see someone else launch an idea you had. You wrote it down in a notebook and you got all excited about it, but they launched it. Yours is still in your notebook. Or if you're inside of an organization, a competitor releases a new product or service that you were working on, but they launched it first. They got it out the door. I'm going to share with you 3 of my innovation regrets. These are ones that I tend to spend way too much time dwelling on. Asking myself those what if questions, if only questions, and why didn't I questions. And at the end, I'm going to share with you what I learned, and I'm going to give you some pieces of advice on how to deal with and move on from innovation regrets. Because if you do not move on and you hold on to that history and you hold on to those what ifs, that is going to hold you back. You are not going to be able to move forward. So let me go through regret number 1. And this is the early days of computer viruses. This was when I was director of product development for a company called ThumbScan out of Naperville area, a suburb of Chicago. This was a fingerprint biometric device. I actually started working with them as a contractor. I've talked about it on the show before. I was in Silicon Valley at the time and then moved back to Chicago to become part of the management team when it was funded by Frontenac Venture Capital out of Chicago. Now, we'd gotten a lot of attention for this product. It was a fingerprint biometric device under $1,000 that used a 186 processor. It used some very clever optics to capture the fingerprint. And this was really the first biometric fingerprint reader device that was under $1,000 that you could attach to a PC. Attached to other devices also, but PCs was one of those markets. At that time, there was the very, very early releases of computer viruses running on PCs. And there was a professor out of the University of Cincinnati who had done his PhD thesis on it. He had reached out to me. We were talking about PC security, etc. His thesis started to get some traction, getting some press, and he just happened to mention my name to a reporter out of the Chicago Tribune about myself and my background and my expertise and the work that I was doing in the early days of computer security and protecting PC devices. Well, that turned into an appearance on TV shows and being on radio shows around the country, and New York Times and the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Chicago Tribune, The Guardian, all had articles about my work that I was doing in computer viruses. Now, I had sat down and thought about, if these viruses really start to take off. And keep in mind, this was in the very early days. There were very, very few viruses. I had captured some and had set up an air gap system and was playing around with them and had a chance to actually tear some of them apart and understand, what they were trying to do, and also talk to people who were writing viruses. And at that time, it was primarily the digital version of pranks. It was, two geeks, two hackers kind of playing jokes on each other. So I sat down with a notebook and I wrote out a bunch of ideas for how to products and services and those kinds of things around PC security and specifically viruses. Now remember, this was 87, late 86, early 1987. So very, very early days. PC didn't get introduced until effectively 1982, 1983 is when the PC industry really came into fruition. Now, here's the problem. I wrote down all these ideas in a notebook. Many of the products that you see out there today were ones that I thought about in the notebook, but I became biased. ThumbScan sales were not doing all that great. People were not buying fingerprint biometric devices to secure their PC. So only authorized people had access to the PC. Remember, at that time, there was no Windows. So all you had was MS-DOS. There was no login prompt. There was no security. Anybody could sit down at anybody's PC and sit down and start using it. But people didn't see the value of it. It's one of those technologies way before its time, way before it's needed. Now most every laptop out there has a fingerprint scanner built into the keyboard deck. So when I saw the ThumbScan sales go down and saw how hard it was for it to get any kind of attraction, I just never thought security work would be something people would be willing to pay for. So I just took all of those ideas in the notebook and set them aside. And guess what? Norton Utilities and McAfee and all of these guys who I know and knew in the industry at the time all took off and ran creating these products and became quite successful. So what was my lesson learned in this innovation regret? The lesson I learned was I was way too close to it. I was looking at ThumbScan, a fingerprint biometric device that I was very, very involved in, very interested in, had invested a huge amount of time and energy in making that product be a great technical, cost-effective solution. And I correlated people's interest in that product to an entire industry segment. My mistake. Now I look at, the other was I looked at the now. What were people buying now? And I didn't think about what could be, what could happen if viruses became a major issue. If other people, the bad people, had figured out new ways of breaking into your PC, what could they learn from it? What would they do with that information? I didn't think about that. I was just looking at the now, and I correlated to saying, there's no market. I've got all these ideas. I got other things to work on. I'm just not going to commit the time. My other big mistake is I didn't re-look at it. I didn't look at it as others, as I saw McAfee and others launch their antivirus software. I didn't go back and say, well, I got better ideas, and I was, became very well known in the computer virus industry in the 80s, and I walked away from it. I had an opportunity to leverage my reputation, all the press I was getting, all the free PR that was happening around it. I didn't go back and look at it. Why? Because I didn't want to be the second person out. I didn't want to be the third person out with an idea. And that was another big mistake, a regret. And why was that? Because look, first people out never really typically create the best product. Google is not the first, search engine, as an example. And so therefore, you don't have to be first. You have to be willing to innovate in your own way, the value that brings. So again, one of my big regrets, this opportunity that I just totally missed, totally didn't leverage. So a unique position I had because of the free press I was getting and all these TV shows and radio programs and all these news articles that were written about me and my work in computer viruses all the way back, starting in 1985, 86, 87. So big regret. And it's one I tend to think about, particularly now when we see and read all the press about ransomware and all the computer security issues and the break-ins that are occurring, and phishing attempts and viruses and those types of things. So missed opportunity, big one. Wish I could do that one over again. The next innovation regret I have is it was a project that I refer to as 6 degrees. So this was the whole concept between 6 degrees of separation. So you, in your ability to link through people you're only no more than 6 people away from everybody else. So you can correlate yourself to pretty much make a connection to anybody through 6 other people, 6 degrees of separation. So a bunch of us who had been doing a bunch of startup work and doing consulting work and that, sitting around one day, and we came up with this idea around this project called 6 degrees. And could we link people through their work experience, their employers, the companies they worked for, so likelihood that they know somebody, and be able to basically create a connected network that you could navigate to get yourself and be introduced to pretty much anybody out there. And this was 2 years before LinkedIn even offered any kind of a product or a service. And we were thinking about it. We actually laid it all out, thought it was a pretty cool idea. What happened? We wrote it all up. Great idea. And then we got distracted. Got distracted by a new shiny object idea, a new idea. And we dropped it, didn't move forward with it. 2 years later, LinkedIn comes out, turns into being huge success. So what's the lesson learned? The lesson learned was I did not lack for ideas. I had notebooks, and I still have notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks of ideas. What I did not have at that time, I had not built a ranking process so that if I get a new idea, rank it against the list of my current projects, and does it bubble to the top or not? That allows me to stay focused. I didn't have that. So I got this great new shiny idea. And this is a common trap. New ideas always look shiny. We tend to get bored. We tend to push so far in our existing ideas. As soon as we hit some frustrations or slow down or whatever, and this new idea comes in, we naturally gravitate to the new idea. Not that it's a better idea. We just jump to it because it is a new idea. And that is where this got derailed. it got derailed on this idea around it's a new idea. It's a new shiny. It's exciting. It's got all this opportunity and all this potential. Let's jump on this one instead. And so therefore, the next idea became the most important. That new idea became the top number one idea. And then the new idea became the number one idea. And if you're a person who generates lots of ideas, you're constantly hopping to the new idea and not really being methodical on ranking your ideas and then taking that new one and seeing where does it fit into the rank. It may not be the best idea. Add it to the list, but it should not be the one to distract you off of working on your best idea. The other fallacy on this one is I put too much weight into thinking that I was the proxy of the customer for 6 degrees. I'm a person who likes to get connected to people. I like to keep track of what other people are doing to see if it's something that's interesting. I've worked hard over my career to build and maintain a network. And back before LinkedIn existed, it was a lot harder. LinkedIn makes it a lot easier to stay up on where people are at today. What are they working on? What are they thinking? What are they publishing? What are they sharing? But back then, I'm thinking, well, I get the connection piece, but some of this information is private. I don't think I would want to share it. If I don't want to share it, then nobody wants to share it. Well, guess what? I was not the proxy for 99% of the people out there. I used myself as the proxy, big mistake, and missed an opportunity. So again, this project, which I refer to as what's called 6 Degrees, had a great opportunity, early days, to build up the effectively the social network from a business perspective, very equivalent to what today we all use as LinkedIn. Thought of it, wrote it up, got distracted, missed an opportunity. Number 3. The number 3 regret I have is back when I was working at OmniPoint. Now, I was a contractor to OmniPoint. OmniPoint was the first GSM mobile operator in the U.S. I had done a bunch of work in the early, what was called analog or AMPS mobile network, starting in the late 80s and into the early 90s. So OmniPoint was launching in New York with a first of the digital mobile services based on the GSM standard. It was the first in the U.S. OmniPoint, this would have been, late 95 throughout 1996. Now, one of the things that we were doing at OmniPoint was we were trying to break new ground. It was brand new. It was launching in New York City, New Jersey area was where it was launching. And one of the ideas that we came up with was to come up with prepaid mobile. So everything up to that point is you had to qualify, you had to have a good enough credit history, and you were postpaid. You'd use your phone, then you get mailed a bill, and then you pay based on how much you used it. Prepaid is you put money on account, you use your phone until the money goes away, and then your service cuts off until you walk in and pay some more money. So this was the very first prepaid mobile in the world. No other market anywhere in the world had this. The target was for people who didn't have credit. There was a lot of people, particularly, in urban areas that didn't have credit history, or they just relocated to the United States and hadn't established credit. We wanted to bring mobile to more people who needed it. We didn't want credit to be the barrier for this new service. Since no credit required, we really didn't set up an account, right? We don't need your address. We don't need your name. We don't need, you don't have to have a social security number to open up an account. So we set this all up to truly be prepaid. You could walk into any retailer that sold OmniPoint phones. You could throw down, $60 in cash. That $60 would get credited to your account. You could check your balance on your phone. Now remember, this is late 1995 and throughout 1996 is when we were building and launching OmniPoint. It became one of the fastest growing customer segments for OmniPoint because that was an untapped market. That market had no other way to use a mobile phone service. So we got flooded with people using the prepaid service, and it became very popular. It got written about, a bunch of articles on it. Then the challenge came in was that criminals soon discovered these anonymous phones. Since they didn't have an account attached to them, they didn't have your name, they didn't require your address or social security number. So criminals could go into an OmniPoint store, buy a phone, prepay, throw down $500 in 20s, and walk out and have an active phone and be able to use the phone. Now, this basically became the launching point for today, what we refer to as burner phones. So OmniPoint, very first one, we were the very first ones in the world to offer this capability in prepaid mobile. And today, you see it, you hear about it, you see it appear in movies and on TV shows about burner phones. Go in, buy a phone, use it, it's untraceable. The US government, with what we did in OmniPoint, went nuts, went crazy. I had more conversations with FBI officials and certain three-letter agencies, etc. Why? Because at the time, subpoenas cannot be issued to a phone number. You don't subpoena a phone number. You subpoena Joe Smith's phone, but it has to be attached to the individual. It must be to a name. Since there's no name attached, if the FBI served a subpoena to OmniPoint to say, tap Joe Smith's phone, since that account did not have Joe Smith listed and you couldn't correlate it, you could not apply the subpoena. The government effectively could not legally wiretap any prepaid OmniPoint phone. And the government was going nuts about this. And so it became a big issue. And but OmniPoint stuck to its point on, look, hey, nothing we're doing is illegal, and it serves a population who has no other way to get access to mobile phone services. They don't have a credit history. They may be new to the country. They live in a cash economy, whatever it might be, and those people deserve phone services. We had a significant unattended consequences. As a result of that, other operators around the world said, wow, someone's figured out how to do real-time prepay phone services, because you have to keep track of literally every call. So as the call ends, you have to be able to know how much money to deduct to know whether or not you make the next call for them and when their balance runs out, all those kinds of things. And many other operators duplicated how we did it at OmniPoint within their own networks, in effect, opening up mobile services for a whole part of the population who would never have access to it, but created a global phenomenon in the form of burner phones. Now, the effect of this, though, was the fact that you had this unattended consequence, right? You know, we thought about the here and now. We thought about what it was we were doing to serve an unserved population that was not on anybody else's radar screen, and we were hugely successful in doing that. However, we did not look for the unintended consequences. Would we have done something different? Yeah, possibly. Maybe we require an ID in order to create a valid account so that you could correlate it. And I can sit here and be all kinds of regrets, like, oh my gosh, I created a capability of burner phones. And you think about all the actions other people have taken using burner phones. And, you could feel that guilt. You could feel that frustration. You could have that regret. But you need to move on. You need to move beyond what could have been. I learned a lot from this. One, don't think anything's impossible. You can do it. However, look for the unintended consequence. Look for that situation of somebody using it in a way that you did not intend for it to be used. So, in summary for today's show, look, we all have regrets. I've got tons of them. I'm sure you have regrets. I'm sure somebody you know also has tons of regrets. We all have regrets. If you've been, around, if you're an adult, you've got loads of regrets. If you're younger, you may have a few regrets. Trust me, you will get more as you go older. I have a ton more regrets than I've listed here. I'm only sharing with you three distinctly different kinds of regrets to innovation work that I have done. Now, what I have done with all of my regrets is I have a special Moleskine notebook and I write them all out. I write my regrets out. What did it's kind of a post-mortem catharsis kind of an exercise, but I list them out. And what would I have done differently around, each of those? And now once I've written all of them out, then I finish them, close the notebook, don't think about them, and move on. To move forward, you have to let go of the past. You have to not dwell on them. If you dwell on them, they're taking brain cycle times. They're taking energy away. You have to write them down, acknowledge them, document them. When you've done that, close your notebook, put the notebook on the shelf, and move on. Move on. Like I said, to move forward, you have to let go of the past. I have a key exercise for you to do this week. Sit down and write out all of your regrets. Write out all of your regrets related to the innovation, efforts, creativity, projects, ideas that you've ever thought about. And read them. Write them all out and then go back and read them. Next, close the notebook and then move on. Now, when you have a new regret, add it to the notebook, add it to the list, but then move on. Do not dwell. Let go and move forward. If you walk away with anything from today's show, and that is, we all have regrets. We can all dwell on them. We can let them burn up our energy. We can let them create doubt in our ability to come up with new ideas or to come up with the right decisions for new ideas. Don't let that be your trap. Write them all out, read them, close the notebook, and then move on. Now, before we close out this week, please visit our sponsors and let them know that you've listened to them and that you appreciate their support. We greatly appreciate our sponsors. Our sponsors are critical to bring together the team that puts together this show. Now, I take no money from this show, but I do need some support, some staff. We've got hosting costs. We've got, equipment that we have, microphones, etc., that have to be procured. And we have a small staff, a couple full-timers, mostly part-timers, who come and help support and make us help us produce the weekly show. So please visit our sponsors and let them know that you listened and you heard about them on the show and that you appreciate their support of the show. It is so critically important that they hear from you. Also, give us a review wherever you're getting this show, however you're listening to it. Put a comment up. Let them know that you listened to the show. Give them your thoughts about the show. I would greatly appreciate it. And also, tell others about the show. Help us spread the word. Help us grow our subscriber base. We have been around for 17 years. We're in season 18. We've been at this for quite some time, but always looking to expand our listener base. And again, I just want to extend my sincere appreciation for the time out of your busy schedule that you give us by listening to the show. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your time and hope that today's show brought you some insight and some ideas and some things you can do to get beyond any regrets you may have around your innovation. And with that, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.